they'll start. They do that with all four engines, and that was the reason I became a pilot, because I love that sound. And there's another sound in here that, and this is a recording. You'll hear machine guns, and that's exactly the way machine guns sounded when they shot them when you were flying. And you'll notice that the rate of fire is not real rapid, and that's all of the 50 caliber could fire. But there's one other thing is that it's an actual recording of a B-17 taking off. Listen, you can hear the engine started. That is the sound of a B-17 taking off with all four engines going. And we used to fly 31 ships every day, and when you weren't flying, sometimes they took off at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 7:30. But if you were sleeping, when they started to take off, you didn't sleep anymore, because the way we took them off, they would line up on the runway, and then each squadron had 7 ships or 8 ships in it. They would taxi down the runway, and then everything was done by time. And the time would come 5 minutes to 6. The lead ship, they would hold their brakes, put all 4 throttles full power, and that airplane just shook like that. And then they let them, at 30 seconds, they let them go. And if you never felt a surge of power like when all 4 of those 1,200 horse engines let go. And then the second ship would taxi up, we'd taxi up 30 feet, and the second ship, as soon as he took off, you run your engines up. The full power, you held the brakes. In fact, it took both the pilot and the co-pilot to hold the brakes. Run them all the way up for 15 seconds, and then at the end of 15 seconds, you let the brakes go. And I'm telling you, every 30 seconds we took a plane off, and we could get all the planes in the air in about 15 minutes. And what they did was, the lead ship, as soon as he took off, he throttled back to 100. It took about, we could take them off with a full load about 105 miles an hour. One of the big things about this guy telling me this, I had never taken a B-17 off that was fully loaded. And he said, you're going at this time. And when our load was 6,000 pounds of bombs and 13 machine guns with 4,500 rounds ammunition for those machine guns and 2,800 gallons of gas. So we were loaded. Our usually takeoff weight was supposed to be 68,000, but we took off with 74,000. And it was about 105, 110 you were airborne, and we could get that speed in 5,000 feet. But the B-17 didn't have a steerable tail wheel, so you had to direct the airplane down the runway with the throttles. By giving differential power on the throttles, and what you really did when you pull them all forward, because they're really going to, because of the torque, the engines all go around the same way, they're going to pull the left. So you pull the right throttles back, and then when the airplane started to go this way, you fed them in and kept it straight. After you got 70 miles an hour, the rudders would start to, you could steer with the rudders, so you didn't have to, you could pull full power up and let them go. The lead ship always flew, they flew straight ahead for 10 miles. As soon as he got off the ground, he throttled back to maintain 150 miles an hour. And then he would climb out, and each airplane, they would form up, and he would fly 10 miles straight ahead. And usually 2 airplanes would catch him, and then he would make a turn to the left, and the rest of them would come in there. And when you took off yourself, the first thing you did when you got up, depending on which way the wind was, because the prop wash from the plane ahead of you was wicked, so you didn't want to get in that. So if the wind was kind of, you always took off the end of the wind, but if it was right down the runway, you're all right. But we never took it off down the runway. It's always a crosswind. You only had one runway overseas. But as soon as you took off, you went this way or this way. So you didn't hit the prop wash. You only had to go 100 feet, and then you'd straighten out. We would circle over our field till for maybe 2 hours. They'd go out, and then we'd climb. And then usually we'd have 10, 12,000 feet. And there were 650 airplanes from Italy. I flew out of Italy. That flew every day. And every mission. We didn't fly every day, but we flew every day that was good. And there was a big lake, we call Lake Lucina. It's about as big as Lake Winnebago. And the departure point for the mission was always the north end of that lake. And you had to cross that, the lead pilot had to judge, so he crossed that lake, and everybody crossed that lake, and they had a time. And that time was a minute and a half. Every group that crossed that lake had to be a minute and a half ahead of the other. So those 650 airplanes would cross that lake. And then there were fields all over Italy. Most of them were B-24s, but we had 6 groups of B-17s, and we always flew together. And we climbed all the way to the target. We'd try to maintain 200 feet a minute climbing, and we would start climbing, and we were burning a lot of gas. I think we burned, the first hour, we burned 125 gallons an hour in those engines. And then you started to lean out to make sure as you got higher your engine. You did it by